Gonna be moving on to our next speaker for the night. Our next speaker is calling in from Osaka today. Right? Is that right? Yeah,
Uh, eh?
yeah, calling in from Osaka today.
Oh no, I'm in Kyoto.
Oh, in Kyoto, excuse me.
Yeah.
Is Chad Porter with the presentation title "How to SNS in 2020 for Beginners." All right, take it away.
Okay. Let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick for you all. Uh, let's see here. There we go. And bam. All right. Can everybody see that just fine?
Looking good.
All right. Looking great. All right. Here we go. So, how's it going, everyone? My name is Chad Porter, but I'm also better known as Chado Sensei. I'm going to be talking about how to SNS in 2020 for beginners. Just a little info about myself, real quick, if I can properly hit this button. There we go. A little background about myself. I am a host, a stream producer, and partnered streamer, all based in Japan. I got my start on Twitch.tv, and I became the first partnered streamer on the platform in Japan. I later became a stream producer for events that happen in Japan, like Bit Summit, Tokyo Game Show. So if you ever seen like those big like event halls where they have like hosts and stuff up on stage, I've been one of those hosts. I've also been the back leading the camera crews and kind of like guiding the team behind it all with the stream production and everything like that. I'm currently partnered on Facebook Gaming, so if you ever want to see me streaming, you can find me on Chao Sensei Facebook Gaming. Just a kind of reminder of the verification. I used to also be a gold mod and admin for Twitch Japan as well, so I overlooked the entire community. I don't do that anymore. I'm currently the stream producer for Dangan Entertainment, which is a indie game publishing company based in Osaka, Japan. Here's some of my education background for you. I graduated. All right, so about SNS. So the three main factors when doing SNS platforms, we're mainly going to focus on Twitter, but this can kind of broaden out to like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever platform you're kind of looking at, maybe even LinkedIn, for example. The main three factors that you want to look into are being relevant, being cautious, and being interesting. And number one for those kind of factors would be looking into sort of like a humor that kind of relates to your audience. So, you know, this might be going out to someone who's watching this right now, this video, and being like, well, I'm starting a business into flowers, or I'm getting into my own content creation as a streamer, or I'm going to be starting my own company. These factors can all bleed into any other field of expertise. So I think a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be mentioning here might sound kind of like too much in the gaming area, but I think it will definitely be able to bleed into what a profession that you're into. So again, finding humor that can relate to be both business friendly and relatable to your audience. Having something professional to be shown that's really down to earth, that shows it's human. Because like if someone follows an account and it says like, oh hey, we have a discount for whatever product, or you know, I'm having a on par group sale. If you type in this code, if you make it more human, then people tend to relate and they tend to support you rather than it just being super corporate, like cold and like, hey, this is on discount, buy it. You know, no one's really going to get too much into that. Be able to engage with your community is very important. And the last one, which I think is very important, which is allowing criticism and showing a humble side, not if, but when you're wrong. There might something come down the road. Maybe you take a hot take and you say something that you might regret down the road, or maybe you weren't well informed on some certain topic. Maybe you said something wrong. It's important to accept you're wrong and apologize rather than double down and attack those who point out what happened. So that's just a lot of examples I have down the road. We'll see in a second here. Really quick here, what not to do and be cautious. Again, if you have people attacking you over certain things, maybe not even controversial at all. Maybe it's just like a simple like, hey, flowers are awesome, or I like RPGs more than I like shooter games, or whatever. You might have someone who disagrees with you, and it's best not to point fingers and, you know, put all attention onto that one person because they don't agree with what you like, or they don't agree with what you like, or vice versa, whatever's going on. It's always important to ignore or go, oh yeah, okay. It's never good to immediately resist and stop those who are not particularly against you, but there's no need to have conflict, right? Which relates into having personal opinions and moods. You know, it's good to be neutral, and it's good to have your own personality and mood into something, but also it's important to realize that sometimes they can control you, and it's good to sort of reflect on something before sending it out. I can't count how many times that needs to be repeated. Uh, don't forget to be sensitive. There are things happening in the world that we may not be aware of. So if you are trying to say something a little bit more open, that's not focused on yourself or your product or who you are, it's good to kind of like look around and go, okay, is it cool if I say this? Like, you're not going to talk about having a great surfing session back in March 11th, 2011, right? I mean, that's not really a good thing to do considering what happened during that time, right? So you need to be aware. And of course, I think most people do when they jump on their SNS platform, they kind of look through their feed, what's going on in the world, maybe people check out the news, and you kind of get a general idea like, okay, I know it's safe for me to talk about whatever during this time frame, so I'm in the safe zone. I know it sounds kind of like scary, like why should I be scared on SNS platform? It's my profile, it's my content. Why should I be afraid of what I say? And again, this is all public stuff that's going out, and people are going to see it and react to it. So it's important to be aware and to know what's going on around the world before you post something. Which leads into addressing real world incidents. As a content creator or somebody who runs a business, it's usually best to leave that out of your profession unless it personally affects you, in my opinion. If something directly affects you as a community or as a race or a country, I think in some way it is good to attribute to that, but in many ways it's not, because some people might see it as like, oh, it's just corporate, or this person trying to gain some clout. They're trying to like jump on the train wagon and get some more followers, So again, it's important to see and keep a pulse on the social network system, how people are reacting to it. Is it an aggressive topic? Is it a nice topic? It's always good to have your eyes open around that. Being sure everyone's treated equal, study hashtags, keeping a finger on trending pulses. So I wanted to bring up an example of some bad scenarios that went down on SNS platforms, mainly Twitter. So there's a popular game that came out around 2015, I think it was called Battlefield 1, developed by DICE, published by EA Games. The game takes place in World War One, and so the people who ran the platform decided, oh, we're going to talk about World War One. And they started to make these memes regarding World War One by things like, when you're too hot for the club, hashtag just World War One things. Or your squad got big plans for the weekend, hashtag just World War One things. And when your squad is looking on point with the German army with a destroyed Zeppelin in the background, I mean, I think we can kind of agree that this is really tone deaf on the scenario of what World War One was all about. And of course, the people who died in a war. Next one. Funny enough, also published by EA, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Very high regarded title, Star Wars. There was a scenario where loot boxes, which are items that can be bought within games, were kind of like, and still not to this day, sort of negatively seen because it's more money you're putting into a game. You bought the game, you should already own objects that are within the title, so on and so forth. Not get too much into it, but Star Wars Battlefront 2 had confirmed loot box items within the game, and of course, the community backlashed. And on Reddit, which is a popular front page website for people to react and talk to each other about pretty much front page news and information, the PR team behind the game, decided to do a Q&A about why they're putting loot boxes in the game. And not to read the whole thing, but this is actually the most downvoted comment in all of Reddit history. I took this screenshot a year ago. I believe it's past 1 million now. But to quote just the first sentence, which is used as a humorous meme, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. That alone sent everyone on a roller coaster of emotions. So needless to say, it was very tone deaf. They weren't aware of what the community was thinking. They were pretty much only corporate mode, trying to get as much money as possible. They learned from their mistake now. The game has completely changed. They took a full 180. Everything's free on the inside. It's all good. The game actually is doing very well now, and they've learned. But this is a good example of what they didn't know what they were doing at the time. So good on them for changing their tactics. Another bad example is not knowing your community at all, much like EA with their loot boxes. This is Subway Canada, a verified Twitter account, which did a poll. Which did a poll on pick your favorite bread that you like to use on your subs, and they didn't realize that not many people really preferred to vote at all, or even had the option available for what they liked the most from their audience. So the poll finish was 0% interactivity, but it had 9,788 retweets and 15,000 likes. I don't know how that's possible now, but they did it. So I don't know. I think that's an achievement to not have people vote on a poll section for account. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Next one is Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is another PC game, very popular. This is in regards to people within your own company that may sort of like have hot takes as well. And a hot take, for those who might be confused by that term, is when you might tweet something out or post something out without thinking much into it. It's just like you think it and you shoot it out into the void, and because you're just kind of like trying to relieve stress, or you're not really holding back much into your filter. There was an example of a person who passed away relating to the game, Total Biscuit, who passed away in 2018 from cancer. John Bain was a renowned StarCraft 2 commenter. He was one of the leading people behind content creation and shoutcasting. He was very bleeding edge with a lot of his knowledge. He did not like Guild Wars 2, and he thoroughly expressed his dislike toward the game, and of course added commentary on how it could be best improved. One of the developers behind the game commented how they were happy that he died. And then about a day later, the lead developer of Guild Wars 2 renounced that person and another person who made a comment like that were fired the following day. So there are some people on Twitter or even other social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, whatever, will have like in their information is like, "Oh, comments are my own opinion." I'll get into that in a second, but you'll figure out why that's not really helpful. Another bad example was the Journal Pizza, and this is another point of not knowing what's going on in the social networking pulse of what is a good hashtag and what isn't to use. Hashtag why I stayed is for women who were being held back by abusive relations or husbands or boyfriends and they couldn't escape. And then the Journal Pizza decided to use the hashtag because they thought it was a popular one. And dude, hashtag why I stayed, you had pizza. But then they followed up with an apology saying, we didn't agree to the hashtag before posting. So saved a little face, but still, it's like you could have taken at least 5 seconds to see what the hashtag represents before using it. I'm not going to read the whole tweet here. I'm just going to summarize it. Basically, this is one of the people behind Google Stadia, which is this new streaming gaming platform released by Google. It's been in a lot of work. This guy is one of the creative developers behind the platform and said that all content creators should be paying publishers money for streaming games. It should be considered illegal. They should have a license. It should be harder to show content to the public, which was quickly backlashed. And there's an articles after article about how, he had a really terrible hot take and he had to be kind of like silenced by Google themselves and YouTube Gaming. Yeah, it's not hard to look it up. Another bad example, I'm not going to review the whole entire thing, but this is also from another developer who decided to scream out about how their distaste towards publishers and how this person knows better. I'm not going to say the name or anything like that, but this is another prime example of, this is something that can affect you in your future career with working at other companies, working in your own company, and any past information you may have. So it's always important to think before you post. Another one here we have, this is from BlizzCon. I think it's 2018. I want to say 2018. BlizzCon is a really big convention that happens for Blizzard. Blizzard has a lot of really great AAA games. All their games are instant classics. And there was an announcement for a new title that they were going to come out with, which was Diablo 3's next expansion game that a lot of fans were looking forward to. And knowing Blizzard, the main community that plays behind Blizzard games are PC gamers. There's little to no console gamers. It's mainly PC. And they announced that their newest title for Diablo was going to be a smartphone game only. So it was a title called Diablo Immortal. The reaction was nothing but gasp and open mouths because the entire audience is mainly PC gamers. And one of the lead developers who was on stage talking about the title didn't exactly get the response that he was looking for. And he's quoted for saying, "What's wrong with you guys? Don't you own smartphones?" And of course, the whole entire crowd backlashed and booed him off stage. The press picked up quickly on it, and Blizzard was just like, "Oh, I can't. What happened?" And memes were immediately created in regards to him saying so. Is this a phone? Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Again, so regarding back with the Google Stadia and the developers from different games who are making hot takes on Twitter, having my tweets are my own opinion and don't reflect my company's opinions at all means nothing. It absolutely means absolutely nothing to the general public. When they see that, they will do an immediate witch hunt on you. They'll look up your history. They'll attack you. They'll look through your previous posts. They'll bring it up. They will email the company you work for. They're going to email the people who pay your money. People will do all they can to attack you in any way, shape, or form. And just having that alone is not going to protect you from any hot take you decide to throw out there. So it's important, again, to reflect on the material that you're going to be posting, to be aware and not to be emotional when doing so. So what makes a good post tweet interesting? So using up-to-date vocabulary, having the right proper new photos and screenshots, GIFs, whatever. Make it more interesting. Have a lot of color and spiel to it. Retweeting helps you with a lot of things as well. So like reacting to a popular tweet with your own opinion can also help, or even like a Facebook post, taking that image or asset or post from that account and adding it to your own. It shows connectivity and it shows awareness of what's going on around you. So some good examples. Fall Guys, which is one of the most liked games this year, recently came out as well. It's mind-boggling on how much attention Fall Guys has gotten within the past couple of months. Even Walmart Canada Gaming and KFC Gaming have actually gone out of the way to participate in a much smaller account because of how well it's doing. So it shows if you're able to make a proper wave or join one, you can also ride that with the person and sort of gain the clout that you're sort of looking for in a positive way. Another good example. This is from 2000. Oh gosh, I want to say it's 2017. Yeah, it was 2017. This person, this is a complete nobody. I'm not trying to be mean in that sense. This is just some guy who had a Twitter account, using Twitter. And Carter Wilkerson decided to DM Wendy's or tweet to Wendy's and say, "Hey, how many likes do I need to gain?" I think he wanted like something flown or shipped to him from Wendy's, and they said 18 million. And he said, "Consider it done." And he got almost he almost got like 4 million retweets within that year alone. And it's just having the right proper things to say, interact with the right crowd to sort of like uplift it. So you're not being mean, you're not being sadistic, you're having fun and like having fun ways to talk about it. So this is a really prime example of just like a complete zero nobody who can just shoot up out of nowhere. This one is from a verified account, but this also got a lot of attention relating to the Wendy's tweet where he tweeted out at one of the Paul brothers, where it says, how many retweets I need to have to shut down your YouTube channel? He says 5 million. LOL, good luck. He said, consider it done. And of course, a lot of people, who dislike Logan Paul and Jake Paul agree. Another way is having fun, right? If you're into content and having fun with sort of the things that you're interested in, this is a great example of showing like what you do in your off time and hobby. For example, instead of naming Link your own name, you can name it My Dude, and turns over into a very chill bro. That's like a lot of attention. Competition between other companies. So maybe you have a competitor in the same field that you're in. A good example here is Xbox. When Xbox One came out, PlayStation actually went out of the way to congratulate them, and people see that as friendly competition. If you have a competitor in the same field as you, it's okay to have some friendly competition. You don't have to be against each other or ignore each other existence. You can actually interact with one another. ESRB, which is meant for rating systems for video games. ESRB said ESRB was rating different games, and Nintendo, of course, works closely with ESRB because they physically release copies. And Nintendo of America said dabbing is for everyone, and they had Mario dabbing. And
this is your 2-minute warning.
Thank you. They had that mark. The Sims also found a good way to take a meme and spin it with their own appeal. They the traditional guy looking at other girl meme with the girlfriend currently in hands. Instead, they put the dogs from Sims 4, and when life is calling out, so was Sims 4, cats and dogs. Woof. Deus Ex took pictures from recent current events about bioengineering and technical advances, and said we're now officially living in Deus Ex game, and took Elon Musk and all these other things happening in the world. It looks like we are indeed in Deus Ex. Sonic the Hedgehog is also a very popular Twitter account, and they posted a please enjoy our take on a dancing hot dog meme and has a dumpster on fire. And of course, a personal one I didn't think would actually get popular is on October 30th, Pikmin 3 was launched on Nintendo Switch. All I said was Nintendo on October 30th, and it's Shigeru Miyamoto throwing a stuffed plushie toy of a red Pikmin, and that got a lot of attention. So at times it seems like getting popular is random, but if you're constantly making content and attuning to your audience who are listening and interacting with you, you will inevitably find that one will spike up and help you kind of like roller coaster upwards. So again, final review. What makes a post on SNS attractive review? Using proper hashtags, without exceeding 3, using GIFs, pics, vids, some sort of like media to make it interesting. Emojis are good to have, including people with @username, and of course, using recent material like trending, a conversation, and memes. That's all for my presentation. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Chad. Just right on time, too. Okay, floor is open for questions. So please, people on the Zoom call or people on YouTube, please go ahead and ask away. Chad, if you can turn off your screen sharing so we can see everybody when they want to ask questions.
Okay. How do I zoom? There we go.
Have anything so far? Oh, Matt is asking, what would be the best use of SNS you have ever seen? Let's say that's not your own.
Right. There's so many different methods and forms of like using SNS platforms. Like mainly I would say the main thing is just like connecting with community. I think one of the best ways I've seen SNS ever used would be a community that has like maybe like a movie. Oh, actually, what's a good one is I remember when Sonic the Hedgehog movie was coming out and they released the first trailer, and everyone was taken back by the animation and looks of Sonic the Hedgehog in that movie, and Twitter was like, "What is going on here?" And they pushed back, and I think through SNS alone, that helped both like the studio and the producing team and everything kind of realize like, okay, obviously this is what the audience wants. We can revert back and fix it. And I think that's one of the main biggest things that I've seen SNS used for is like helping like companies and talent and industry like be more aware of what everyone wants and thinks.
All right, thanks.
That's a good one.
See, do we have anything from the YouTube?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, first of all, can you remind me again what is the business that you do and what do you use social media, like in what ways do you use social media for it?
Yeah, sure. I'm the co-founder of Dangen Entertainment. We are a indie game publishing company based in Osaka, Japan. I am the stream producer and content creation connoisseur at the company. So I work on all social network platforms. I work on game platforms where the community can talk with me. I can talk with them. I make content that people be aware of, like the games that are coming out, stuff like that.
Okay, so you're the social media boss for that company.
Yeah.
Do you run the social media for Dangan?
I do. I am the mouth of Dangan.
Okay.
So then what challenges have you had personally while doing
that? So I mean there's some where people want to start a fight because they don't agree with something said. Like I have a spin take. We have a mascot for the company. He's called Mike Kuhn. You've seen him on the bottom right of my slide. And Mike Kuhn is the mascot of the company of Dangen. And so what I like to do with the account is I like to pretend that Mike Kuhn is the one talking on Twitter. And he'll be talking about his favorite indie game he's played recently, or maybe he's come across somebody who hasn't played any games and wants to recommend indie games to them or something like that. And someone didn't like how I made a tweet where I said, can you imagine talking to someone and they haven't played any games? And someone didn't like that. And so they said, well, this person said, I don't have the money to make that happen. And so I sent them a free key to one of our games. I said, no,
Oh.
now you do. So they profusely thanked me, but that was like a sort of like kind of moment, because it's like I was like, oh, maybe I should have thought more into this post, but I was able to spin it to make it a positive note instead. So there are definitely times where like it might seem a little scary, because you don't know what's going to happen when people react.
Actually, on that note, Katie, can I follow up with
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
You've put out a lot of bad examples and on these. And hindsight being 2020, are there like ideas of like how those kinds of bad examples could have been reformed or stated? I guess Battlefront 2 is a good example.
Yeah.
But that took a long time. But like more on the immediate recovery, something that like you did with giving a user a key for an indie game.
Yeah. I think in hindsight, looking back at those posts and everything, like the Battlefield World War I thing, I think a quick apology obviously is one of them. A lot of bigger companies, they tend to not apologize because they can kind of like override the hate wave. But there's a lot of companies who can't. Personally, I think it's good. Like, for example, the DiGiorno one, where they immediately, like the day after, they realized their mistake and apologized about it. I think apologizing and being aware, like if you show awareness to that and you're not tone deaf to what's going on, I think that's like an immediate spin you can take. And then you can kind of like try again, because people can not like you and they'll unfollow you for obvious reasons of their own. But you're not going to make everyone happy. But if you're able to at least show improvement and show that you're willing to improve and like have fun, more interesting content, then you can definitely save face like almost immediately.
I do want to ask, this might be a little bit long-winded, but and being the host, I shouldn't be asking questions, but I really do like to ask.
Okay.
A lot of all your examples have come up from like U.S. corporations, interactions in the predominantly United States sphere.
Yeah.
You work in Japan here, and your company is Japanese for as is, and like okay, and Japanese corporate Twitter or Japanese big name Twitter is so much different. This is like so. The little bit of background: I actually run Kyoto University's social media accounts, and there are a lot of like hurdles even just for that. Like, how have you seen differences between like U.S. corporate SNS and Japanese SNS?
I feel like a lot of Japanese SNS has been really cold when it comes to just like how they run their sites and platforms. Like you'll look at Nintendo or Sega or Sony or whatever, and it's pretty much just like this game's coming out this day and time, and that's it. It's like there's no like really like any like feeling behind it. And I feel like if you ever want to have like really any real emotion behind like a certain company or anything like that, is by following the developers of a company. For example, Platinum Games, if you follow Hideki Kamiya, who bans everyone. Yeah, he blocks you. But that's his spiel, right? Everybody wants to be blocked by Hideki Kamiya because that's his like thing. If he doesn't like you, he blocks you. And it's fun to interact with him because he's more the voice for the company than the company is with their own platform. So I feel like you're more to get more of a like real reaction from developers and workers from the company that represent themselves than the actual company itself.
Does that translate also to like the US side as well?
I think in some ways it does, but I feel like Western platform like users tend to try to like add a little more spin into their words than Japanese ones. Japanese are very like formal, like, you know, like this is what's happening, here's the information, bye. And like I feel like Western ones are like, hey everyone, you know, long time no see, yeehaw, you know, like they'll try to like add a spin to it, add a hashtag and all that fun stuff. I noticed too, like a lot of Japanese SNS users don't tend to use hashtags as much as Western ones do.
That's true.
Do you think if Japanese social media accounts did start acting a little more relaxed, I suppose, what do you think the reaction would be? Do you think it would be good, or do you think Japanese public wouldn't really appreciate it? I
think it'd be great. Because the account I use, for example, my company's account, I also talk to Japanese users and I directly tweet at them when they respond to my stuff. And they're like shocked, like, oh my gosh, like Donk is talking to me. So I'm like, yes, it's me, Mike Kuhn. I'm talking to you, and thank you for the fan art, or thank you for doing this. That's really awesome. Like, or they'll ask a question like, hey, when's this being sold or released? And I'll, respond like, it's coming out at the same time. I hope you have a lot of fun. Like we are too. Like I had like little comments like that, and they're just exploding with like enthusiasm for more reactions like that.
Nice, thank you.
Wonder who's the are there like is there a Japanese account or corporation where like you see it and it's like they're getting there but they still gotta, or is it like was it mostly, or is there like a different social media? Is it not Twitter that you should be looking at? Should you be looking at like their Instagram or their Facebook?
I feel like Twitter is very popular in Japan, and there are actually a lot of times where the devs themselves will jump in to intervene when their company is having a question pop up. Like, for example, what was it? I think it was Sega. I want to say it was Sega. They're talking about the Yakuza game, and one of the lead developers for the Yakuza game actually jumped in to answer the question rather than the PR for the account itself. And I feel like that's happened way too many times on Twitter for the Japanese side than the Western side. I feel like if anything happens with the company in the West, they're like, yeah, talk to the account up there. Don't bother me. But when it comes, I think the devs in Japan want recognition, so they purposely jump in and answer stuff for the company.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's the 10-minute Q&A that we have. So another round of applause for Chad.
Yay,
thank you for the super informative
Thank you
talk.
very much.
All right. So we're going to put another 5 minutes on the clock, and then we will be continue.